Hey, and welcome to Making Potions Blog 3 with me, Renee. Um, I apologize, this might end up being a long blog, even though I was trying to make it shorter than my last one, because I attempted to record this previously, and then my computer decided not to compile it, and it all got lost. And then I continued working for 3 more days. So there's just a lot of stuff to cover. I'll try to be fast about it, though, so bear with me if you want to. Um, as usual, I'll start with some non-technical stuff. Stress has been low, which is good. I haven't been freaking out as much if I've been making bad decisions doing this instead of just getting some high-paying job somewhere. Um, it's sometimes in the back of my mind, but hey, it's much better to deal with. The main issue that I have been encountering is dividing home life from work life because I'm working at home, which means if I'm always at home and I should always be working, right? Um, so I had an issue last week where I didn't leave the house for 4 days and probably worked too much. Not that that's a bad thing in little bits, but if that becomes a habit, it's probably much more likely to burn me out. And I don't want that to happen. I want to continue being enthusiastic and loving my work forever and ever. So I made sure this weekend to get out of the house, to hang out with friends, go do things, drink beer. Yeah, beer. And I also got to hang out with my father for his birthday. Happy birthday, Dad. I love you. Um, so that was nice. And for some reason it's still summer, even though it's Seattle and the middle of September. So we're having weird weather. It's supposed to hit 90 today. I don't have air conditioning, and I am on the top floor of my building with a computer with 3 monitors. I might actually melt and die. Uh, this is I actually work in a loft here. I have an apartment, but it has this nice little loft that I call my command center. The problem is it's hot, hot in the summer and cold in the winter. But I love it, and I have a lovely setup here with lots and lots of tech and monitors and things, and my beautiful rainbow keyboard, cherry browns. Yeah. Okay. So I've been working on a lot. I don't know if it's going to visually look like a lot, but it's been really good progress and with things which I would consider core components to the action-y part of the gameplay. um, I've learned a ton, especially about Unity and best practices for game development. And the first thing that I really learned was about singletons. And singletons are just a way to set up a class of an object to make sure that only one instance of that class exists. It's single. Um, and this is really useful because it prevents having multiple copies of the class somehow existing and then having conflicting information with each other or doing weird stuff. And it also allows you to refer to the instance of the class much more easily, which is easier to refer to it from other scripts. Um, so that's cool. Uh, Speaking of referring to things, one of the issues that I ran into was when I was implementing um, cast timers and cooldowns, which behave fairly similarly. I was having difficulty because I was calling them, like I was calling the cooldown from the potion which was being thrown. And the way I have potions set up right now is you throw them and they fly and they hit their end spot and they destroy themselves. Like the game object like dies. Um, that might not be how it's going to work, but there's a chance that that might be how it works in the end. Apparently, though, even if you have your um, enumerator, which is a function which allows you to do time-based stuff, uh, on a different object or in a different script, if you call it from an object which is getting, or a script on an object which is getting destroyed, it stops. I wouldn't think that would be the case, because that's like me pushing a timer somewhere else and then dying, and the timer dying as well. But that's how it works. So all I had to do to fix that was just put in a function on that object with the timer. So I'd call the function, and the function would call the timer, and then when I blew up the potion, the timer would still complete and pop me off of cooldown. So yay! The next thing that I worked on was setting up additional different states. So with a casting timer and a cooldown timer, and the casting timer just prevents you from moving, I needed, as I had noted in my before, is a mount timer. And if you didn't catch me talking about this before, I want to have a normal pace at which you can walk around and a sprint pace. And the sprint pace is going to be advantageous to use. It's going to be good for dodging, it's going to be good for running away from monsters, but it is going to require a mount time. So you have to get on your broomstick or boost up your power or whatnot. And this mount time is going to be a scary moment where monsters are coming at you, and you either have to like jog away or take that extra second to hop on your broom and then zip away. And I think that's always that fun, like just a little bit of stress in there, that little bit of extra strategy, or of do I walk or do I mount and sprint? So for getting that set up, one of the things that I had to implement was an advanced animator. So before I just had idle and run, if you notice. And then I threw in mount, dismount, sprint, idle, and sprint, and thought while I'm doing this all, I might put in death states and throw me. All very cool. However, getting sucked into that trap again of doing too much work. So I started screwing around with all this and then realized, okay, I don't need to get the mounting working right now. It'd be nice to have a sprint idle and an idle and a run and a sprint that look different, just so I can tell that they're different more easily. But the whole mounting, dismounting, even throwing and dying, not as important, especially not for the prototype. So I was getting stuck on like little problems like triggers. So triggers are cool things in the animator where they're booleans, but when they're used, they return to their original state. So from idle to mount, if I trigger mounting, it should use it to go to mount, and it should like flip back off. I haven't been able to get that to work yet, but then I realized I shouldn't screw around with this right now, and it's going to be a minor thing to fix when it's time. The other thing that I did, which was sort of silly, is I really like these pretty lines. Like, this is so pretty. Look at this pretty thing. So I started throwing in extra transitions. Like here, oh look, pretty lines. What I didn't realize is that Unity auto puts in a condition for that transition, and I was getting issues because if you see the condition that it puts in is exit time, like just under a second. So my animations were working perfectly fine for about 1 second and then breaking. Again, minor fix, but something to note. So, pulling myself away from these animations. Wait, nope, actually, I will show you them working. That's probably much more interesting. So, I switched her sprint animation, which you saw before, or her run animation, to her sprint animation, and I put in a new animation for her walking around. So this is her walking around animation. I'll look at her waving. Oh, hi, hi. Of course, her idle animation, and then she mounts up and sprints. Oh, look at this! Woo! And you can tell that there's a mount time because if I, holding over, you can see there's that pause there before she runs. This is all very, very cool. All right. Let's go back here. my notes. So, like I said, probably spent a little too much time looking at those animations then, but I caught myself in the middle of screen with it and pulled myself away. I did have an interesting difficulty involving the shift key. My first difficulty was that I was being completely silly and forgot that this is my left hand and the sprint I use, or the shift I use most, is left shift. That was seriously like a 5-second mistake. I figured it out and fixed it quickly, but I thought it was funny that you guys should know that I forgot to check which hand's my left hand. Yay, Renee's silly. Um, the other issue that I noted with the sprint is that, at least in Unity, the base inputs that it deals with, it takes from the keyboard, are the actual command outputs of the keyboard and not the keys being pressed. I was running into issue with this because I only had one potion bound, which was on my key number 1. It's either on number 1 on the number row or 1 on the keypad. And with hitting shift and 1, you're actually hitting the end key. So that popped me out of my sprinting, and it wasn't spawning a potion, which made everything extremely confusing until I realized exactly what it was doing. Again, I started looking into fixing that, couldn't find an easy solution, and determined that it wasn't worth my time right now. So I just switched the sprint key from shift to caps lock, which feels really awkward as someone who's used to doing video games with shift to sprint, like any first-person shooter generally. But it's okay. It will be fixed in the future, or I will work something else out. Not core to the gameplay. Then, as I only had 1 potion at the time, I wanted 2 potions, and I could have made 2 potions completely separately, but I probably want to have dozens of potions, if not hundreds of potions. Probably not hundreds. Dozens of potions. Lots and lots of potions, but not hundreds of potions. Yes. And I had to develop a method which would be easy to use my base potion prefab and customize it in ways which would make it look different and act different. And the way that I determined was best to do that is by creating a base potion class and then modifying that class with sort of sub-classes of potions. And I will just show you the code for this because I'm bad with words or something. Here's my base potion. See, got my base potion class. It's mono behavior, like almost everything. And I'm actually not using this add sprite, but this is a good way to show you of how I would have just a public virtual function on here, and then it's going to be overwritten by these other classes, subclasses of base potion. So here's one of them, and here I just grab a sprite, which I have added to the scene via a potion manager, which makes it better than doing a resources.load for them. At least that's what I determined. And then I already have a sprite renderer on my prefab potion. So sorry, my headset totally nuked itself. I didn't charge it enough. Okay. So I already had a sprite renderer on the potion prefab, so that way I only have to add the sprite to it instead of the render itself. I don't know if adding the full render and the sprite is more expensive, but I already had it on there, blah, blah, no issue. And I wanted to show you the potion manager that I was talking about since I just sort of glossed over that. So the potion manager here, I defined the structure of these potion dictionaries, basically, where I have a name for the potion that I can refer to, and then the sprite. And then this is, of course, a singleton. And I have a find sprite function, which helps me go through and pull the sprite out by the name. Now, I'll show you what this looks like in actual Unity, and you'll see the advantage here. So if I was doing this in a different way, I would have to do a resources.load for each of the sprites. But here, instead, I can just tell it the size of that array of structs, and then I can type in potion1, and I can just drag in the sprite that I want. And this allows the sprite to be loaded when I'm using it. It keeps everything much more neat. And I think that overall it's going to be advantageous and simpler in the future when adding additional sprites and potions. Coolio. Let's see, let's look at my notes. Cool. So if you noticed in the code here, I have this update commented out. And this update was originally on the potion spawn script, and then I put it here, and then I put it back in the potion spawn script. And what it does is it checks to see if I am pressing the same key of the potion that was spawned, and so it despawns it. The reason I want to have this is so that if you spawn a potion, you can put it away. And I think that potion spawning pre-cast is important to the ease of the gameplay, because it allows you to see which potion you're going to use before you have to use it, and you can put it away so it's not distracting, or in case you don't want to accidentally use it by your cat stepping on your mouse or whatever hecticness happens. However, I think that I didn't want to punish people by spawning a potion and then meaning to have spawned a different one, like if I accidentally hit 3 and I meant to hit 2. So I put in behavior here to check to which potion is active, and then to put that potion away if it's the active potion, you hit it again, or switch potions if you hit a different potion. So you can switch between potion 2 and potion 3 if you meant to hit 3 but you accidentally pulled out 2. The reason that I switched this back to the potion spawn script is because I decided that I would like the player to be able to assign their own hotkeys, or which potions are on which hotkeys. I mean, I don't think they're always going to have the same potions with them when they're out exploring anyway. So it doesn't make sense to have the check for which hotkeys are being pressed on the potions themselves, because that doesn't matter, and it's harder for that potion to determine which hotkey it's assigned to out there. Whereas in the potion spawn script, it is much easier, and it'll be easier in the future for me to modify. And then, yeah, yay. I think that was almost it. Then I just wanted to cover the 2 most recent things which I added. And that is, I added, for the cast time, an actual pause in the potion flight. The way I had it implemented previously is it was like a post-cast time. So she would throw the potion and stop moving at the same time, but continue to not move for another half a second. Whereas a normal cast time would be she stops moving for half a second and then throws the potion. I also have non-interruptible casting, so you can't stop casting by moving. Like you would in some other games with casting. And then I also added in a dismount on throw, so that when she's throwing a potion, it dismounts her from her sprint if she's sprinting, because if I didn't do that, then people would just sprint all the time, because there's no need to not sprint. You just get into a sprint as soon as you could, and then run around sprinting the entire time. So I'm going to show you how this all works. Here we go. She's moving around, and she spawns a potion, puts the potion away, spawns a different potion, puts a different potion away, spawns potion 1, switches to potion 2, back to potion 1, does rave, and then can throw. As you can see, if I click throw, there's that little pause there. And then if I'm sprinting, and I pull out a potion, I can then click, and there's that pause and throw, and you can see it dismounts her. But then since I'm holding this down, it mounts immediately. But if I don't, there you go. Cool. So that's all of the work that I've done. I think I've set myself up really well for expanding in the future. I really like the way that the base potion and potions were set up. So I think I might do the same thing for effects. I'm gonna look into it. It seems like that's a really good way to approach the effects of the potions and the effects of monsters. So if I have potions that spawn fire and I have monsters that spawn fire, I can use sort of the same fiber-esque thing, uh, burning, damage effect, whatnot, and cut down the amount of code I have to write in general, and then just control the strength of it. So what I have next to do is going to be implementing these effects somehow. Implementing enemies. I have one here, but he's actually just a little blob that you can kind of push around. And then also implementing HP. Woo! And again, I'll have to make sure to not get sucked into dealing with HP and stats too much because it's going to be very easy to be like, oh, I can add in resistances and strengths and weaknesses, blah, which are really cool and should probably be in gameplay, but aren't necessary for this core base level prototype that I'm making right now. And that's my next task to do. And hopefully it won't be so long in between videos so I won't have to talk at you for 20 minutes. I'm sorry. Um, Thanks for tuning in. It's great as always to know that people are interested in learning and what I'm doing. That's also cool. So I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your day or evening or whatever you're watching this. And thanks for tuning in. Catch you later.